What's up, Everyday Blades? Man, had a amazing pawn shop score today. Probably my best pawn shop score to date. As you guys know, I go into a lot of pawn shops. I would guess that in the greater Houston area where I live, there are probably 200 pawn shops, and I'm pretty sure I've been in 198 of them, no exaggeration. Today, I found two I'd never been in a city outside of Houston that I rarely ever go to, 30, 40 miles outside of town. I had an appointment out there, so I stopped in two pawn shops I'd never been in before. This is what I found at the very first one. And understand that when I tell you, a lot of people think since I do all these videos, these pawn shop treasure videos, that every pawn shop I go in is loaded with awesome knives and they're all cheap, and that's never the case. Even if the 1 out of 50 has a good knife, it's usually marked over retail. It takes some serious negotiation and educating the people to be able to get the knife for a decent price. And usually if it's not a mom and pop pawn shop, they don't even have the ability to negotiate very much. So you're talking to a wall. So I go through the same stuff all of you do. I just have access to a lot more pawn shops, and my job requires me to drive around all day. So I'm driving by these places, and I'll stop in for 2 minutes and just look at their knife case. And if they don't have anything, just leave. Today was a score. I will tell you that the pawn shops that are either in or just outside of the affluent neighborhoods, of course, are the best. If you're in an inner city pawn shop that's a long way from anybody who's making any money, there's not going to be any good knives in there. That's not most of the time. That's all the time. Those pawn shops are just worthless. The one on the outskirts in the suburbs where people are making some money and have some disposable income, that's where you find this stuff at. So let's get started with the first one. This is the Civivi Plethrus by the world famous Elijah Isham. And unfortunately, we lost Elijah recently. I knew that he had passed away. What I didn't know was he was 27 years old. That's heartbreaking, man. No one should go that early. And my prayers go out to his family and friends and people that loved him. The man developed some beautiful knives. Knives that you look like if you put them in your hand, it would feel like holding a cactus. Because they're so crazy. But when you put your hand on, it actually has great ergos, and it's a usable knife. This is one of his milder designs. Nick Shabazz called him and asked him what plethrus meant, because he looked it up, he Googled it and couldn't find anything. He said, I made it up. He said, it's like it does like a plethora thing, so I called it a plethrus. So that's really cool. That sounds like a designer type person. Their answer would be. That's really neat to me. And this knife speaks to me. This is, like I said, this is probably the most mild design I've ever seen of his. This is a great knife. Look how thin that blade stock is, man. This is a very slicey knife. It's on ceramic bearings. The centering is perfect. And I'm not doing a review here. I just want to kind of show you. This is not a super expensive knife. It's like an $80 knife. Paid less than half of that. Got it with the box and the pouch and the cloth and the stickers, and it was practically brand new for all intents and purposes. I don't think it ever cut anything. So that was number one. The second thing I come across, all these other ones were at the second pawn shop a couple of miles down the road. ZT0452 carbon fiber. This one was the same way. It was like brand new. It didn't have the box, but look at the pocket clip. It has almost no markings on it, just a couple of little tiny spots there. I believe this was a collector's knife. I believe most of these were a collector's knife. They just weren't used. They were just loved. This one's got a full carbon fiber scale with a full titanium spring side. There's the information on it. It's S35 units. A very large... I got a ruler right here. It's a very large blade on this one. That's one of the things that makes it so cool. It's a little over a 4-inch blade. Just a cool knife. No box or anything, but just a great knife. The next one was Strider S&G. You do not see Strider S&Gs in a pawn shop. I don't. I never have. I've seen knockoffs. I've never seen the real thing. This is a really old one. This one has threaded like rivet type that goes into the scales. All these Strider guys will know more about this than me. And this, like I said, this is not a review. I'm just showing this off. This is a pretty old Strider, from what I understand. I mean, you can kind of tell the age by looking at the blade. It's super sharp. The blade steel is not marked on the knife, but I've seen Striders before, older Striders that didn't have the blade steel marked on there. So that was really cool. Centering is good. No lock rock. Great little user knife. Then this one. This one's unbelievable. So I didn't even know this knife existed until I picked it up and found one of the best Benchmades I've ever had in my hand. Benchmade 808. This is a great knife. The ergos are killer. The action is unbelievable, man. It feels so good when you operate this knife. It's super, super fidgety. It's just a great knife all the way around. Big, thick blade stock. This knife has been long discontinued, and it's a shame you can't buy this knife because this is a great knife. This one's probably going to stay in my collection unless someone comes along one day and offers me more than I can turn down. This one's gonna probably stick in my collection. But you know how that goes. Nothing's permanent. Love that one. That's probably my favorite knife I got today. Maybe second favorite, because this one's probably my favorite. Strider fixed blade. Look at the beefiness of that spine. Look how thick that blade stock is. With the monkey edge frag pattern. It is S30V. They don't put the model on here. It's what is it? MSC Mixed Strider Custom. This is just a cool knife. It feels really good in hand. It belongs in a Kydex sheath like it's in. Fits perfect. That is just a great. This is probably the best tactical fixed blade I've ever had in my hands. It just feels really good, man. The weight is really good. This is the number one hit of the day. I looked them up on Arizona. There were a couple of them that sold this year. One was $7.95 and one was $8.95, which is significantly more than I paid for all of this together. So anyway, I just wanted to share my joy with you guys and show you what I found and show you what's possible. I mean, I call it pawn shop treasure for a reason. It's like hunting treasure. You rarely ever find it. Most treasure hunters spend their whole life looking for one treasure. So finding treasure in a pawn shop is unbelievably difficult. One, because the pawn shops don't know, most of the guys in the pawn shops don't know what these knives are. Two, they have a difficult time. I mean, there's no way the guy could look up and find out what this knife's worth. The model number's not on it. I had a hard time figuring out the model and the value, and I guarantee you he didn't pay the guy nowhere near that, and I didn't pay him nowhere near that. But, you know, knowledge is power. If you know going in, you know, I knew it was probably worth $400 to $600. You know, that just from seeing all of the Strider fixed blades. It may be worth a little more than that. It may be worth, I figure in the shape it's in, it's probably $600. But that's a home run because that's about what I paid for everything altogether. So if I can get that for that, everything else was free. So, but I don't do this to make money. I do this to build my collection and help the channel and give me stuff to review. And works out great. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. God bless you and your families. Say a prayer for our country. Good night.